Over the weekend, I played golf with my brother-in-law, who, with a driver, had a really difficult time. Hit a lot of slices and was really struggling with distance. On the 13th hole, in, let's call it 30 seconds to a minute, I completely changed his whole golf swing. He hit, in his own words, the best drive he's ever hit, and down the 18th, he hit a 274-yard draw right into the centre of the fairway. I'm going to share with you exactly what we did, and I'm going to give you some really simple drills that you can do directly on the course, because that's exactly what we did with him. So he was a typical golfer struggling with a driver. There was a lot of patterns that I see all the time on the range. I'm going to kind of demonstrate his golf swing and kind of show you why he was struggling. So also got driver, and I've got the full swing kit down here. So he had his ball position quite a long way forward. We'll come to that a little bit later. But he was hitting shots very much kind of in this fashion. That was way out the heel. You probably saw the ball curve way off to the right. And yeah, not a great drive. Club path was left by a big number. He was hitting a lot of shots like that, but equally hit a lot of shots off the heel, like right off the heel here, which just went 20 to 30 yards left into the rubbish, lost ball. What we needed to do is understand exactly what makes up the backswing, what makes up the downswing. Once we understand that, we can actually make it really simple to make a positive change. We changed his golf swing, and then there was one thing we did in his setup which kind of made everything kind of fit together. So in the backswing, what have we got? How do we get into this perfect top of the backswing? Well, there's two things I want you to really be aware of. In the backswing, your arms relative to your chest or your torso are going to do this. Okay, see that movement there? They kind of lift relative to my chest. Arms lift. Now that looks very strange because clearly I'm not making any turn. But if I lift my arms like this and then I add some turn, you can see how that looks like a pretty good top of the backswing position. So in the backswing, my chest is turning, and then relative to my chest, my arms are lifting. Now, where do we want the club and impact? Well, we kind of need it pretty much where it started, you know, back where the ball is. So if that's happening in the backswing, we need the opposite to happen in the downswing. We need the shoulders or the chest to turn back, and we need the arms to swing down relative to the torso. Now, Lee was doing both of these, and I'd almost guarantee that you are doing both of these. The issue was the order in which he was doing things. Let me show you exactly what I mean. Let's take a set with this golf ball, and I'm going to make what hopefully was like a pretty normal backswing. Okay, so those two things have happened. My chest has turned, my arms have lifted relative to my torso. Now I'm going to hold my left arm, and I'm going to keep its relationship to my body exactly the same. So my arms are going to do nothing. And if I start to turn my body back towards the golf ball, back towards the golf ball, back towards the golf ball, you can see that I get my body into what we can sort of say is a fairly decent impact position. But look where my hands and arms are. Look where the club is. Absolutely nowhere near the golf ball. Why? Because I haven't yet swung my arms down relative to my torso. But look where the club is. Look where the hands are. Way too steep, way too much out in front of me. So when I start to swing my hands down now, what is my club path going to be? It's going to be massively out to in. And what does an out to in club path give you? Left to right shots, slice shots. Exactly what Lee was hitting, maybe what you're hitting as well. But as we make this movement here, and we use the arms far too late, it's really easy to hit shots right at the heel. That particular shot there at the start was at the heel, but you can see how it wouldn't be that much of a stretch to get them right at the heel. And if ever you've hit those shots which scoot off at sort of 45 degrees along the ground, that's because they're hitting right off the heel. So what did I do with Lee? What did I tell him to do? Well, he was using his body on the way down. He had great body movement and he had great arm swing. He just didn't have them timed quite right. So here's what I told him to do. I told him to set him inside the ball. And I wanted him to make his normal backswing because his backswing was actually pretty good. He got into a nice position at the top, club face was well controlled, and he actually had a really nice body turn. What I then told him to do was on the way through, feel like he did nothing with his body. I wanted him to keep his back facing the target for as long as he could. I then wanted him to swing the arms down and through, let the club head pass his hands, and I want him to feel like at this point here, his chest was pointing behind the golf ball. So you can see how my chest is still close to the target. And I want him to feel like the club face was pointing right down at the ground, as you can see there. Had he done that, he'd have hit the biggest hook I think I've ever seen. I knew he wouldn't do that. That's the feel I wanted him to have. And what I was trying to do there was completely change the order of what was happening. I wanted to slow down his body turn and speed up or make his arms swing earlier. So I had him making some swings like this. Okay, and you can see how I sort of stop at this point. You can see how my chest is pointing behind the ball and the club face is pointing down at the ground. So what was that doing? Well, as he was not turning his body, it was forcing him to swing his arms down relative to his body. That's perfect. If you're struggling with the driver, I'd almost guarantee that you need your arms to move downwards relative to your body sooner. That was really going to help him. What did that do to his club path? Well, straight away, it got his club to swing a lot more from the inside, a lot more neutral, which is really, really key. And you can see how I get the club into a much, much more desirable position when I do this versus this movement and using the arms much, much later. And then by getting him to sort of feel like the club pointed down at the ground, I was getting him to rotate his forearms. Rotating your forearms is absolutely key if you're trying to square the face. Okay, look where that club face is pointing, straight up towards the sky. That's going to be your downswing. You've got to use your forearms to square that club face. Goes from pointing up to pointing straight to pointing down. If we do that with a golf ball, club face points at you, club face points at target, club face points at ground. Now this is a little excessive, but like I said, it was the feel I wanted to give him. Now, there was one key thing that we had to do in his setup. We'll go through that in a moment. Let me just hit one. I want to show you what the club path is going to be as I do this. This is not going to be at full speed. Okay, now if you saw that ball flight, it was very different to the first shot. It was a big right to left. My club path there was 6.9 degrees out to the right. The club face was close to that path, which is why the ball turned over. What did Lee need? Exactly that. He needed his path more right and he needed his face more closed. And so many of you will need those two things in your driver swing. The other benefit is it started to get him to hit the centre a lot more often. If I'd have just told him that was the only piece of instruction I'd have given him, he would have got worse. There was one tiny thing we had to do in setup, which made it all fit together and caused him to hit those, in his own words, the best drives he's ever hit. What was that one thing? Well, let's tee a ball up and again, we'll just kind of go through these pieces and how they sort of fit together. I want you to think about where the club is relative to the ground. Clearly at setup, my club rests on the ground. So when I make the wrong move in terms of the timing, I go all body, all body, all body, all body, and then my hands. Where is the club going to get closest to the ground relative to the ball? It's going to get closest to the ground over here. Okay, when I do the opposite, when I move my arms relative to my body, notice how the club gets closer to the ground much earlier. So with Lee's old swing, his club was bottoming out somewhere outside of his lead foot. Now if you remember right back at the start, when I talked about his setup, I said he had his ball way too far forward. But with his swing, and maybe with your swing, that's helping. As we changed his golf swing, we needed to change his ball position because the club is going to be bottoming out much sooner. So the final thing we did is I got him to tee it a little higher and I wanted him to have that ball just inside that lead heel. If he didn't have that, even with the right swing, he'd have got terrible, terrible results. So if you're someone who hits the heel, you hit fades, you hit slices, you lack distance, you hit down on it, you need some of what Lee needed. You need less of this, more of this in your downswing. So let's find our backswing. Let's feel like we swing the arms down and past the body. And this little rehearsal for so many of you will be absolutely the best thing you can do for your driver. Yes, it looks strange, but it's a rehearsal, it's a drill, it's a feeling. Ultimately, what Lee did on the 18th hole was probably hit the best drive I've ever seen him hit, 274 yards, high draw because I gave him that feeling. And I reckon he probably hit it even better than that one. But my path there is going to be pretty good. 4 degrees in to out. That's what Lee needed. He had his path way to the left. We fix it, and I say it was 30 seconds to a minute. and he was able to repeat it hole after hole after hole. Do that, and I guarantee you'll get better drives.